Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Parkinson's Occupational Therapy. Today we have occupational therapist Melissa Frazio. Melissa's been an occupational therapist for 30 years. 15 of those years have been helping people living with Parkinson's. And she's also been the support group leader for Castle Hill Support Group for over 10 years. So welcome, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining today. And I'll hand over to you.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to pop a screen up so you can see that. There we go. So you should be able to see a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation now. So I'm just going to talk through some slides. There's not a lot there. There's a few definitions, but I felt that was going to be useful for us to help get a better understanding of the practicalities of occupational therapy. So I'll whip through the slides relatively fast to start with, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. And, oh, there we go. I thought it wasn't going to click over. Okay, so to start off with, we're going to look at a definition of OT. And I've written up there to enable people to remain active and independent in their everyday lives. And I guess OTs play a crucial role in supporting individuals who are living with Parkinson's, because basically it empowers those to adapt, engage, and into those meaningful activities and have better quality of life despite the challenges that are posed by basically this condition. Occupational therapists specialise in helping people to find meaning in the necessary daily activities. And we also refer to these as occupations, and I will talk more about those occupations shortly too. And for someone living with Parkinson's, this is really crucial because of the progressive nature of the disease, of the condition, and it can affect your physical movement, your coordination, and your cognitive functions. So if I think about a definition of ADL, activities of daily living, and I imagine most of you would have heard this term from time to time. ADLs are essentially the tasks that each person needs to perform on a regular basis to sustain basic survival and well-being. So if I break those down, I actually talk about occupational performance components, things like self-care, productivity, and leisure. So self-care are the looking after yourself kind of stuff, the normal care, normal tasks, everyday activities such as dressing, eating. It's fueling your body by getting enough sleep, and it's things like hygiene tasks as well. Productivity, defined by the state of being productive, is those occupations essentially that make a social or economic contribution to society, or that we need to do for an economic substance. And that might include things like volunteer work. It might include being a carer, and sometimes it includes some of the domestic chores we do. And leisure, most important. These are the activities for pleasure, relaxation, or satisfaction. They can include hobbies, socialising, exercise, or simply just resting. And this is quality experience. This is what we want. So I'm going to show you this picture. Oh, there's my other one. So there they are, self-care, productivity, and leisure. I'll show you a picture now. And it might look a little bit complicated, but in the blue, and that's the one, the circle in the middle, if those that might be colourblind, we talked about the self-care, productivity, leisure. But there are so many other components that impact us as individuals, and therefore an occupational therapist needs to explore. So looking first at the performance components. So this is the triangle, or the purple or the mauve. And this is looking at the affective, the physical, the cognitive, and also the spiritual in the middle. So affective is our feelings. It's that domain that consists of social, emotional functions, our intrapersonal experiences. The physical is our doing bits. So that comprises of sensory inputs, motor inputs, like our muscles working and functions. Our cognitive, which is our thinking, so our brain sort of switching on. It's all our mental functions. It's our cognitive and our intellectual. It's our thinking, perception, concentration, memory. That's sometimes problematic. Comprehension. It's our judgment. It's our reasoning. And spiritual is actually central to the model because it resides in people and it is shaped by our environments and it gives meaning to us and what we do. Spiritual doesn't have to mean religion. It doesn't have to be connected to a god or a deity. It's often our beliefs and our intrinsic morals and values. So then we have the environment. So this is the outer circle and in the lighter teal colour. And just looking at some of those things there, they are cultural, and we're all very different culturally. This can include our beliefs, our values, our customs, patterns of authority in our household, how decisions are made, and what individual roles we have in our households. This can be physical. And for someone living with Parkinson's, this is quite significant because there can be barriers for supporting a person doing individual things in their community. And it could be physical accessibility. It could be your proximity to your family and support services. Then there's the social, which is those social groups like family, like co-workers if you're still working, like friends, and all those roles that are involved. And institutional, and I have included that because if someone is in the process of moving into or has moved into a care home, there are those legal elements and they often overlap with economic ones. And who's controlling the funds, who's making the financial decisions, and these political and economic environments are also connected to the potential that an individual has within the boundaries that they live. So it's kind of complicated, but if you look at all of that, then you can get a bit of an understanding of what is the role of OT and how that role of OT expands. The first thing I'm going to say is we look at the person holistically. So that model that I just popped up there, we take into consideration all aspects of the person. So we basically promote health and well-being. It's the primary role of the OT, helping someone that is living with Parkinson's to participate in their activities of daily living, their activities of everyday life. And this may include working with them to improve their ability on tasks that they want to do, that they need to do, or maybe that they're expected to do. This may require modifying a task or modifying the environment or supporting the individual better. And when you're living with Parkinson's, you see a lot of change, very much so. So physically, emotionally, cognitively sometimes. And it is normal that you change your expectations of yourself, you change your perceptions of yourself, and then that change will actually require changes in both your activities of daily living and your environment, which is often where the OT might come in. So we will conduct a holistic individual assessment. It considers physical, cognitive, emotional, and environmental factors. So we talked about all those. And then the OT can tailor your specific needs, goals, and values to address your symptoms. So that's probably as simple as putting it. Now, this one looks perhaps a little bit small. You might be able to zoom in on your screen. And this is actually not a definitive list. This is just some of the many things that an occupational therapist can do for you. So what I thought I might do is just talk through some of these and give a few examples of what we can do, and that might be the place where we start our conversation, and it can raise some more questions you might have. So the first one I'll talk about is maintaining independence. So OTs can help individuals to maintain their independence by addressing those daily living activities like personal care, driving, communicating. We can look at strategies to overcome difficulties and such things as bathing, dressing, access into the community, doing housework, doing laundry, doing gardening. Home modifications. Many of you might have had experience with an occupational therapist coming to home, putting in some rails and the like, or some other bits and pieces. So we might actually assist you in home modifications, and that's all looking at enhancing your safety and your accessibility. So by that, I mean getting in and out of the house, in and out of the shower, in and out of various rooms. It might also mean recommending adaptive equipment, might even mean rearranging furniture for better access, or just making changes to your mobility. I've got hand therapy up there. So OTs can actually address hand dexterity and your fine motor skills, can provide exercises and techniques to help improve hand function. And we all know that hand function can be significantly impacted by Parkinson's. For example, many people with Parkinson's tend to have what they call micrographia. Now, that's basically when your handwriting, the letters get smaller and they start sloping towards the center corners instead of straight across the page. And I can see a few of you nodding. And sometimes visual and auditory cues might help with that. Sometimes just sitting comfortably, upright position, table, good lighting might actually help with handwriting as well. So lots of things we can help you there with that. Driving is another one of those boxes. And we can actually help to guide individuals through the process of transitioning out of driving, or what I call retiring from driving, if necessary, and explore alternative options such as community transport and other forms of powered mobility. Now, there is a whole world to talk about with OT driving assessments, and that might come up in some questions. And I'm not a driving trained occupational therapist, but there are some of those around. Preventative care is another big area that I do a lot of work with people with Parkinson's. It's basically emphasising on any preventative measures, looking at things like energy conservation, falls prevention, and maintaining general overall well-being. This can also include things like personal safety alarms. Many might have a personal alarm around their neck or on their wristband. I know that people with Parkinson's become very tired more quickly, and this sometimes is due to the effort of simply staying upright and the ineffective movements by body parts and strategies that you do. And we can help look at the routines, look at you prioritising tasks, restructure activities according to your energy levels, and introduce regular rest periods, including really good sleep. Another one is falls prevention, and this is a huge one. And I'm sure many of you quite possibly have experienced a fall, if not several falls. And it's one of the biggest goals of occupational therapy to help prevent the falls. We might look at home safety assessments and do some recommendations in the home. And we're aiming to try to reduce the risk of falls, looking at that environment. And we might even refer you to specialised exercise programs, such as things like stepping on or better balance, that will specialise in working on your balance and your strength. Those living with Parkinson's must pay full attention to concentrate on your walking and using alternative equipment when carrying items, such as things like using your pockets, using a diagonal shoulder bags, using body belts, or using trolleys. When you've got things in your hands, you can't use your hands for support, you can't hold frames. So it's looking at the practical stuff like that as well. Cognitive support is another one of those blue boxes there. And so we might look at strategies to maintain your cognitive changes that are happening because of Parkinson's. And that could be things such as memory, your attention, problem-solving difficulties. Fatigue management is another big one. We sort of already touched a little bit on that, but it's looking a little bit at energy conservation techniques, looking at your time management strategies, and looking to manage the fatigue associated with Parkinson's. Some of you may still be working, so occasionally workplace modifications may be required to help accommodate your needs while you're still working. And working might actually mean your volunteer roles. And I've certainly been in places where people have been volunteering and looked at bench heights and things like that, sitting postures. Leisure and social participation, and this is so important to maintain our social connections. And so we need to sometimes help to find new ways to engage in those leisure activities that are proving to be a bit problematic or challenging. Because let's face it, no one wants to give up their favourite hobbies. No one wants to have to be compromised in the things that they really enjoy to do. So we want to find a way for you to maintain that activity and to actually feel like you're fulfilling that social role really well. Mobility, there's another big one. So concentrating on walking is one of the most essential things. It's looking at things like reminding people not to use non-essential talking while they're walking. So basically concentrate on the walking and not be chatting while you're moving. Pause instead when you speak. And sometimes just touching something solid to aid in balance while you're walking or when you pause and standing to have a chat. Might even teach you how to change direction without abrupt turns, which will then challenge your stability. We might look at you in your home environment to assess for the need of walking aids and home modifications. We might look at your sit to stand transfers from your chair, from the toilet, from the bedside, because all these can be problematic. We might provide appropriate strategies such as using verbal cues. We might suggest equipment that could help and aid in your transfers. We might suggest chair raisers. I love the riser stand assist recliner chairs. And also maybe even just looking at the level access into your bathroom. Do you have a hob to step over? Do you have some tracking to step over that's problematic? Posture and seating. So might look at self-correction of posture. We might look at the support you need in certain chairs. We might even look at review of any wheelchair that you use for its suitability for you. Eating and drinking is something that can be problematic if your swallowing is affected. And we might be looking at good posture, adequate lighting, fewer distractions eating and drinking so that you're getting the swallowing process in properly. And we might even look at modified cutlery, crockery, or other equipment to minimise some of the difficulties and challenges. And the last one there is domestic skills, which I probably could have left off. I'm sure some of you would like me to leave off domestic skills. But it's not just housework. It's also meal preparation, shopping, and all these can be affected because of loss of coordination or balance. Could be due to multitasking and the challenges to do with multitasking when you're doing such tasks. Some small items of equipment could be introduced, things such as a jar opener, lever taps. They're great because they can help you to reduce effort when turning on and off taps. And things like a tipper kettle, so you can avoid lifting heavy and hot weight. Or extra things, you might need extra help rather with housework. So things such as ironing, maintenance tasks, management of paperwork, and things like that. So you can see the list could be nearly endless. And I really just have touched on the surface because that first point that I made about being holistic is looking at you as an individual and looking at what are your needs, what are your goals, what are your priorities, and tailoring a program or interventions based on what you need. So that all sounds great. What am I going to do about it? How do I find an OT? Well, you can start with your GP. Getting a referral for an OT can be helpful. Parkinson's New South Wales can advise you on OTs. Might be good to help touch base with your private health fund if you have one, because some private health funds will give you funding towards occupational therapy services in the same way that they would give you discounts or rebates for physiotherapy. If you have tapped into NDIS, absolutely go down that pathway. Or if you are tapped into My Aged Care, go down that pathway, which could be through a home care package, or it could be through Commonwealth Home Support Program services available. And lastly, you can also check in with the Occupational Therapy Association if you can't find a local OT, and they can guide you for occupational therapists working in your area, and also can guide you on who has experience with Parkinson's working in your area.